Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So this is gonna be the part 2 of the chapter from ESS, which we have been doing already, which is biomes, succession, and zonation. So without any further ado, let's continue with this chapter, and this is part 2. So let's begin. So we'll be starting with climate change and biome shift. So because of the global temperature rising, and of course there being a change in the precipitation all over the world globally, there is being a lot of changes in the climate and the temperature as well. So the temperature is increasing. There is greater warming at the places which were used to be cold, like the high altitudes. Even they are now um, getting hotter. Not only that, the higher latitudes are also being even more hot. We're talking about the winters. It's being more warm in winters now. It's more drier. Others are more wetter. It's not the perfect conditions which are being actually destroyed or I would say they are being just, I would say, depleted. So there are also stronger storms moving forward. These are happening really fast within decades only, and this is a very fast time. Decades being 10 years is not a less time. So what happens is these moves are like towards the poles where it is cooler. It is also there above, like in the higher altitudes, the mountains, and of course towards the equator. Very important biomes which are really shifting, I would say. A drastic change can be seen in them. If I talk about those, it will be the Sahel region in Africa, which is now becoming savannas, which is now savannas and used to be woodlands, and now savannas. In Arctic, the tundra is becoming shrubland because the climate is becoming more favorable. It's becoming warmer. There's global warming, so the our climate is more I would say favorable for the shrubs and the other plants and everything to survive. So that's why it's becoming the shrubland instead of a tundra. So plants can only migrate very slowly, and that's why, because seeds are dispersed by wind or animals, but they migrate long distance. So like wild bees and wildebeest, whales, and all of these, they really do travel long distances, and they also disperse seed by animals, and by wind, of course, it is to the motion of wind, right? There are some hotspots that are predicted to be having a very high turnover of species due to climate change. It's going to include the Himalayas, sometimes called the third pole. I'll just mark Himalayas, as species can move no higher than the land mass. Equatorial Eastern Africa with very drought-sensitive climate, the Mediterranean region, the Madagascar, and the North American Great Plains and Great Lakes. Up to 1 billion people live in regions which are vulnerable to biome changing. Okay, these changes can also bring new opportunities for exploitation of resources, which is a very, very important point to know. Because they can be drilling for oil under the Arctic Ocean. Because now, if the ice starts to melt, people will think, it'll be more favorable to, start mining and start extracting minerals, resources, and other, metals, right? Also, the northwest passage for ships between this could be a trade route without icing. So, because now, right, if I talk about the time 10 years back, it used to be ice all there. But if I now talk about, because it's gonna melt, it will be easier for the ships to trade between the North Pole and the North America. Okay, moving forward. So guys, now we'll be looking at the biomes in more detail. So we'll be starting with the first one, which is the tropical rainforest. So this is a tropical rainforest in Borneo. So let's try to understand these biomes in more detail, their habitats, what are they, where, and everything in more detail. So what are tropical rainforests? So if I talk about what are tropical rainforests, it is my answer would be that they're hot and wet areas with a very broad-leaved evergreen forest. So it is something like this all over the year, right? All over the year. Okay. Now looking at furthermore where within the 5 degrees north and south of the equator they can exist. Climate and limiting factors. There is high rainfall among about this much near high temperatures also, not that high but high of course, and very little seasonal variation. Winters and summers are almost same. High isolation as near equator. Okay, insolation. Sorry, high insolation as it's near to there's good amount of sunlight which is being received by the area because it is near the equator. So sunlight is another good factor that is getting being achieved by the tropical rainforest. Then talking about the precipitation and of course evaporation, which are limiting factors normally, but in this they are not limiting. But rain washes the nutrients out of the soil, which is called leaching. So what happens is, now let's say what is leaching, I'll explain it to you. So for the water will get filled here, and because of more and more precipitation, the water will keep on filling, and when it will go and when it will flow, it will take the nutrients of the soil also with itself. So that is called leaching, and just gonna remove the slide so you'll be able to read it here. It will wash away the nutrients out of the soil, and which will limit the plant, the ability of the plant to grow. Okay, moving forward. What's there? What's the structure? So of course, let me just quickly tell you. It is I will say it has levels. So I'll just it is something like this. I'll just show here. There's plants of this height, this height, this height, this height, and this height. So there are levels which you will find in these areas. But let's read and let's see the actual kind of thing for it, theory kind of thing. So it has a very high level of biodiversity, many species and many individuals of species. Plants compete for the light and grow so tall to observe it, and it's a multi-story profile to the forest with very tall emergent trees, a canopy of others, understory with small trees and shrub layer. And this is a very major word, which is stratification. So stratification is what I talked about. So there is like a shrub layer, there is small trees, and there is emergent trees, and then there will be like tall trees. So that's how, like, it'll be very dense, I would say. These are very dense kind of places to be really like precise, right? After that, there are also have vines, climbers, and orchids, which are like on the larger trees. To support them, they call the epiphytes. So we have two words, stratification and epiphytes. And these epiphytes are, just important to support them, to support the bigger trees. Then in primary forests, which are not logged by the humans, there is like little light which is reaching the forest floor because of, or I would say, leading to there being very few plants which can survive below that point because there is no sunlight available, and because all sunlight has been intercepted before it can reach the ground by the taller trees, and because there are so many plants species and of course stratification of them, there will be niches and habitats. They won't be able to get enough food, and because the roots which are of the plants who are just shallow, will not be able to receive the amount of nutrients that they would need. So they would have like butterless roots, but whatever it be, they will not be able to receive ample amount of nutrients that they would need to grow at a good speed, and of course supporting them. Net productivity is around this much, 40%, and growing all season around, fast rate of decomposition and respiration and photosynthesis. Human activity, there's more than 50% of the world's human populations which live in tropics and subtropics, and 1 in 8 of us live near or in a tropical rainforest. Talking about the issues, there is logging, there is clear felling, there is conversion to grazing, there is tropical rainforests, mostly in LEDCs that and have been exploited for an economic development. And LEDC is low economically developed countries. And examples can be Amazon rainforest, Congo, which is in Africa, and Borneo rainforest, which I showed you a picture also of. Now let's move forward. So you guys, this is what I was talking about. There are several different levels of trees that you can find there. So you guys can see there is going to be a shrub layer. So you guys can see it says layers of the trees. There's going to be a shrub layer which is going to be down there. Then there's going to be another layer, another layer. Similarly, these are going to be the tallest trees which are going to block the sunlight for these trees. So yeah, that's what it goes like. Talking about deserts, this is the desert in southwest of North America. So it's like dry areas, deserts, dry areas which are hot in the day and cold at night, and skies are clear as there is little vegetation to insulate the ground. Another very important point. Then there are tropical, temperate, and cold deserts, three different types of deserts. Then we have where are they found? They are found in 20 to 30% of the Earth's surface, and about 30 degrees north and south to the equator, where dry air is available. So I would say most of it is in the middle of the continents. Some are cold deserts, some are warm deserts, hot deserts, and some cold deserts like Gobi Desert, and the hot desert can be the Atacama Desert in Chile, which has no rain for 20 years or more. It is the driest place on earth. It's one of these hottest and hot deserts. So that's important to know. Then we have climate and limiting factors. Water is limiting, precipitation is so very less, and evaporation exceeds the precipitation. Because if there is any little amount of rain, in within seconds it is evaporated because of such high amount of evaporation rate and heat which causes the evaporation. Okay, so what's there? There are very few species which can survive in such extreme climates, and they're well adapted if they are actually surviving, and in these conditions, if they're surviving, they have to be well adapted to the whole climate. And there's of course low biodiversity. Soils are rich in nutrients but are I will say they're not washed away because there's very less amount of water, so it cannot be leaching cannot take place. Plants are drought resistant and mostly cacti, succulents, which store water and which help them to reduce transpiration, helping them survive. They have very thick cuticles to reduce the transpiration. They have very you know small leaves. Animals are also very adapted to these conditions. Reptiles and like snakes and lizards. Small mammals like rat, like the kangaroo rat, they come out at night, stay in the burrow in the heat of the day. So yeah, they can survive in that climate. They're nocturnal. Reduce the water usage by absorbing, like I would say there are very few animals in the resorts like camels, which absorb water, which store food. Right, net productivity. Perfect. Net productivity is gonna be low because there's water which is limiting. Plants biomass cannot be built up very fast because they're using up a lot of amount. Are also short because there's not enough amount of animals and species to build up a better food chain or a better food web. Alright, about talking about the human activities, there are really, just the nomadic tribes, herd people, animals, which herd animals like goat and camels in deserts. It's mostly them, and the population density is also very low in these places. Issues like desertification because it's too hot, it's too much of drought, too much of overgrazing, overcultivation. Example like Sahel, and examples of these kind of deserts can be Gobi in China, Saharan Arabic in Africa. The next one which we will be looking at in the next video is temperate grasslands. So stay tuned for the part 3, which I will be talking about much more, but we'll be starting with temperate grasslands as another biome. So stay tuned for the next part. Keep watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel.